Hi, I'm Robin Lane, psychotherapist, actress, producer, and director, but due to my venerable age of 85, I like the respect of being called ma'am, m'lady, or you can call me grandma.
Hi, I'm Natalie H. Rogers, and you can call me Grandma anytime you want. I'm an age-mysterious lady, actress, author, psychotherapist, poet, tango dancer, and the founder of Talk Power, a panic clinic for public speaking workshops. Robin and I are the hosts of Badass Women 50+.
The focus of Badass Woman 50+ is to explore the many challenges the aging woman faces. We will look at this from a realistic as well as a pro-age point of view. And though it's true, there are times when these two points of view conflict with one another. And when they do, we will not pretend that they don't. Now, although we take this subject very much to heart, we still can't resist a bit of fun. And we do want to be entertaining. And as you can have already seen, some of our visuals, they will be a bit off the wall.
Webster's dictionary defines badass by throwing shade at it with words like troublemaker. But the Urban Dictionary looks at it from a different perspective, one that we share. A badass woman doesn't suffer fools and will put you in your place if you try to be slick with her. She doesn't sit around dreaming about what she wants to do. She puts the hard work into making it happen. A badass, it says, is driven by values such as responsibility, discipline, honesty, compassion, loyalty, fearlessness, oh yes, and a love of fashion. I read somewhere that a badass woman is so sure of herself and so outspoken that she's feared as the most dangerous person on the planet. Well, we all have some badass in us, and no matter our age, we want to help those muscles continue to grow.
Our aim is to build a viewership of women age 50+ who like our point of view. We think that the way women and aging are regarded today is old-fashioned and out of date, and that it's time for a new perspective. A rebranding is definitely called for. Come on. We know more about diet and exercise and what to eat and what not to eat, and have better access to better health care than our mothers and our grandmothers ever did. We live longer and we have greater options. Badass Women 50+ is for the woman who enjoys living to her fullest potential. Or perhaps she's had a setback or two and wants to know how to reinvent aspects of herself. That's cool. Being able to transform oneself is one of the skills that we will address, but on another show. I've been a master at self-reinvention throughout my life, but today, the show will deal with the discomforts that many an aging woman faces that lead her to make choices she feels pressured into making. We're going to be taking all that stuff out of the closet for a good cleaning. Natalie and I have been psychotherapists for over 30 years. We have changed many lives for the better.
Oh, yeah.
And for the happier. And not only are we professionals trained for this, but living so long, we have a good idea of the terrain you younger ones will be navigating. Options and pitfalls included. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Now, we all know that one of the last taboos for most women is revealing age. I mean, we can talk to complete strangers about our sex lives, drug addictions, or family problems, but let someone ask a woman her age and see how quiet it gets. Let's approach this touchy subject with Natalie's poem, On the Other Side of Over the Hill.
When a beautiful woman sees freshness fading, as shadows hover over her glow,
as shadows hover over her glow,
softness spreading to unwelcome places,
a name
a
forgotten,
name forgotten,
a thought misplaced, perhaps two,
a thought misplaced, perhaps two.
clock is always ticking, and time is the most limited of resources, and making the best use of it is a universal challenge. But for us women who live in this male-dominated society, obsessed with use, the fact of our biological clock makes our struggle more personal. We have to figure out how to best cope with whatever challenges and anxieties that the passing years bring. And one very popular way of coping has always been out and out lying, or lying by omission. I had a friend, some of you might remember, the late actress and two-time Academy Award nominee, Sylvia Miles.
Oh, yes.
Sylvia would look me in the eye when she was in her late 60s, saying that on her next birthday, she'd be 35. I imagine that on her deathbed, her greatest fear was that her obit would finally reveal her true age. Denial was her way of coping with the anguish that she must have experienced with the passing of her years.
Well, anyone can be deceitful. The older we get, the smoother the lie, and the older we get, the more we feel that out-and-out lying or lying by omission are our best options. It's actually expected that a woman will lie about her age. My buddy Lewis tells me that whenever a woman tells him she is whatever age she is, he automatically adds 5 years. Every one of these beautiful women has either lied about their age or is guilty of lying by omission. Beyonce, Sandra Bullock, Nicki Minaj, Rebecca De Mornay, Jessica Chastain, Cyndi Lauper, Keira Knightley, and the list goes on. When Maggie Gyllenhaal, at age 37, is told she's too old to play the love interest of are you ready for this? The love interest of a 55-year-old man, who can blame them?
One of the questions, one of the reasons that we chose to open the show with to lie or not to lie, and that it's our focus of this pilot, is because in having to deal with all the social pressures that are laid on the aging woman, many have developed hang-ups about growing older, which they then gloss over with pretense. And sure, pretense helps us feel better for the moment, but in the long run, common sense tells us, does it build confidence? I don't think so. I chose this topic because for me, the political message that this sends has to be faced. You know, back in the 60s, our mantra was, you're either part of the problem or part of the solution. And not embracing your age is part of the problem. Why? Because lying supports the idea that growing older is something to be ashamed of. Today, we're making a lot of noise. The whole growing body of literature, studies in women are throwing shade at this outdated response to aging. Look at the ages of the 5 women candidates vying to be the Democratic nominee for president. They're all over 50. This has never happened before. Women's groups are being formed all over the nation to fight ageist stereotypes. On Instagram, Mary Frischman's page, The Pro-Age Woman, celebrates the intelligence, the character, the style, strength, bodybuilding, and athleticism that women 50 and up possess. Susie Lang is a brilliant photographer whose Instagram page is very popular and celebrates women 60 and up with untouched photos, wrinkles and all.
Well, I can understand that Robin feels this way. She's been a political activist who went to jail for engaging in civil disobedience. But for me, as an artist and a businesswoman, I understand the pragmatic side of this issue all too well. When the hard-earned professional gains I have made is threatened by the possible loss of a job and loss of my income, that position demanding honesty is not my cup of tea.
If women in their 30s and 40s feel threatened, how do we, moving into our 50s and beyond, manage to survive without hang-ups? And as Natalie said, what if our income is at stake? Interestingly, this is the theme of the TV series Younger, and it's not about a 50-plus woman, but about a 40-year-old who is passing as a 26-year-old to keep her job. That this show is going into its 7th season tells us how relevant this issue is.
When I was 40 and giving birth to my adorable daughter, Colette, I told my doctor I was 30. After my perfectly healthy baby, Colette, was born, one day in an office visit, I told her how old I really was. She exploded in fury right there in her office. She had a meltdown. "Are you crazy?" she said. "You should have had an amniocentesis test." What a dangerous thing to do. She couldn't believe that I had gone through 9 months of pregnancy with this big false information on my chart. To be perfectly frank, I never thought about it for a moment. It was such a natural thing.
It's estimated that 53% of American women lie on dating sites, compared to Brits who lie 9% points less. And that's not because they're any more honest. They live in a less youth-crazed culture. The reality is that despite popular culture regarding aging and decline as going together like hand in glove, it's not true. It's the way a woman feels about her health and her ability that is more spot on than any doctor's assessment. And we're not addressing things like life-threatening illnesses, which can occur at any age. But did you know that in the aging game, once a woman passes 70, her life expectancy increases and increases again once she's past 75? It's nature's way of saying, hey, you're a badass at this aging game. You're much better than most. Odds are you're going to live longer than most. But the ideas that we are bombarded with from the beauty and the fashion industry, who are intent on selling us stuff, are just the opposite. They carry a message telling us that aging is a personal failure. They age shame us. Age shaming is the elephant in the room that everyone prefers to ignore. We pretend there's no such thing. We pretend it isn't there.
Wikipedia has a politically correct term for lying about your age. They call it age fabrication. 2 Australian magazines outed Rebel Wilson's age fabrication, revealing her to be 5 years older than the 29 she claimed. In response, in true badass style, she tweeted she was actually 100 and a mermaid.
My mother lied about her age. She was actually 2 years older than my father, but she had us believe that she was 6 years younger. And when she died, we found her birth certificate. And that wasn't such an easy lie, because it meant she had to adjust all of her brothers and sisters' ages to keep the lie going. But it's my younger sister who takes the cake. My younger sister's children have no idea of her age. And back in the day, she gave me the choice of 1 or 2 options. Either I could say she was 10 years younger than me, or I had to shave 10 years off my age. I think she's burnt her birth certificate, having learned from my mom, or she's rented a safe deposit box in the Cayman Islands and hidden it there. Now, my political awareness has evolved past such insanity, and I may no longer relate to it, but I must confess that when I was 29, I said I was 24, and then I met him. And when he asked me to marry him, I burst into tears and said that I had something awful to reveal. He paled, and when I owned up, he said, "Oh my God, I thought you were going to say you're a druggie, or worse yet, not Jewish." It's astounding now to realize how insecure the culture had made me.
These days, age fabrication is tougher to get away with, as technology and internet access has made finding out personal info pretty easy. Go online and search the white pages for your name, and you're going to be surprised when your name and your age pops up. Ms. Magazine first editor Susan Levine tells how her mother, upon turning 50, began making herself younger. So by the time she died at 92, as far as everyone knew, she had hardly been born. Actually, her mom had gone back to school, and at age 82, she earned a PhD. But she refused the honor that Adelphi wanted to award her for being the oldest person to acquire this distinction. This haunts Miss Levine, as she is quoted as saying, "I keep thinking what she could have done for women of her generation in terms of making them feel less invisible."
Yes, that was my mother's generation. In the early 60s, I had rented a couple of hat-check rooms, and in one, my mom, who was in her late 40s and quite attractive, for goodness sakes, I looked just like her, I had her operated at lunchtime. Within 1 week, the owners came to me and said, either you get rid of her and get someone your age, or we break the contract. Now, perhaps they couldn't get away with such overt ageism today, but the 2018 AARP report states 64% of women say they have either been the target of or witnessed age discrimination.
Even Susan Levine acknowledges that she feels anxiety about owning up to her age. I'm afraid that the age of 74 turns off younger women with whom I want to relate, she says, as comrades. Bad as she is, the unease doesn't keep her from being honest about her age.
I find the opposite case to be true. Because I embrace my age of 85 and my openness about it seems to attract a lot of people, especially younger women. I think perhaps that's because my attitude soothes their own inner fears. For me, it's led to growth. And in the big picture, growth tells us that we are alive.
I ever tell you that several years ago, after my cataract surgery had healed, I looked in the mirror one day and I said, "Who is that?" Couldn't recognize myself. Now that I had the surgery and my eyes were no longer clouded, I could see how I really looked, and I realized that I looked a lot older than I felt and that I really imagined I looked. It was a big shock, and one that I'm still getting over. My way of coping was just to lie and be silent when it came to telling my age. I remained silent of an indeterminate and mysterious age, and as a matter of fact, my very own husband, Harold, had no idea how old I really was. When we met, I was 37, he was 42. Of course. I told him I was 27, and believe me, I could get away with that. That's my picture there, in 37. When my friends were told that I lied to my husband about my age, they were shocked, but not me. One day, when we had been married for about 25 years, he said to me, "Hey, Natalie, I was looking at our insurance policy. There's a mistake about your age. You better fix it immediately." So, of course, I had to tell him the truth. He was astounded. "You know that age means nothing to me," he said. "Why?" Why indeed, why indeed.
Being deceptive about age is a defensive posture that is used to escape the feelings of being devalued. Problem is, it doesn't work. It doesn't solve the problem. This consistent capitulation to ageism, whether justified or not, is actually dysfunctional. To the degree that we're dishonest about ourselves, we stunt our own growth and then seek our value continuously from the eyes of other people, which becomes like a kind of an addiction. And just like all addictions, we need outside approval more and more and more. But ladies, let me ask you something. Do we have to be trapped in a catch-22?
When Ms. Magazine's editor revealed that her mom forfeited an honor because she so feared being perceived as old, one has to ask, what is it that defines age? What's so frightening about it?
A recent New York Times story cited a 69-year-old woman as elderly. The Philadelphia Metro considers 70 to be elderly. When NPR read a story about an elderly 71-year-old midwife, readers went nuts. "She's delivering babies. You gotta be kidding," they wrote. Others wrote saying elderly is at least over 80, and some wrote and suggested 95. Has any one of these folks seen 98-year-old Holocaust survivor Agnes Coletti still doing splits and somersaults? This is the way we are buying into the over-the-hill myth.
FYI, Professor Erickson of Florida State University wanted to see if older folks could acquire new skills. Under rigid laboratory controls, he had a professional juggler work with a group of 8 to 12-year-olds, also a group of senior citizens, for 3 days. The seniors got the hang of it much faster than the kids. FYI, men and women deal with aging differently. Men are less likely to cope with change or to acquire new skills. The opposite is true for women. women develop better coping skills and their rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide decrease as they advance in years. Suicide rates for men, aging men, are 3.5 times higher than that of women.
The head of MIT's Age Lab, Joe Coughlin, writes in his book, The Longevity Economy, Unlocking the World's Fastest Growing, Most Misunderstood Market. He expounds on this at great length, and he writes that the future is female. One of the issues the new women's movement focuses on is entrepreneurship. Women are finding that getting phased out of a job due to age is not the end of the world. In greater and greater numbers, they are going out and starting businesses of their own. And in general terms, a 50-year-old entrepreneur is almost twice as likely to build a successful company as is a 30-year-old. Natalie here is a most accomplished entrepreneur who never went to school for an MBA. She's just a badass who keeps on keeping on.
For many years, I had been developing my Talk Power, a panic clinic for public speaking business, into a very successful breakthrough approach for solving the problem of serious fear of speaking in public with a neuroscientific program. 5 years ago, I received an email from a Mr. Huang who lives in Beijing, China. He wrote to me that he owns 10 public speaking schools. Recently, he had come across my book, Talk Power, The Mind-Body Way to Speak Without Fear, in Chinese, of course, Chinese translation. He said that he had never seen anything like my book. He was so impressed with my innovative program that he wanted me to come to China to teach my Talk Power in his schools. Of course, I was extremely flattered by his invitation, but my first reaction was, oh, no, not me, to China? I have no desire to go to China. It's not an English-speaking country. It's too far away. They have smog. And at my age, I'm not sitting on a plane for 13 hours. I'm enjoying a rich, healthy life here. Who needs this? Of course, I never said these things to Mr. Huang. We went back and forth with emails. I just hemmed and hawed and skirted around the issue with excuses like, I'm allergic to smog. I tried to learn Chinese, but I was a miserable failure. And the best one was, Chinese food makes me fat. He assured me that I didn't have to speak Chinese, that he would get a translator. This stuff went on for a whole year. Finally, Mr. Huang wrote to me, I have to meet you. I'm coming to New York with my wife, and we must get together. Gotcha. I was cornered. So how could I refuse? On the appointed day in May, I met Mr. Huang and his wife. I know that you are very fearful about coming to China, he said. Just tell me, what is it that you want, and I will make it happen. Actually, in preparation for this meeting, I had talked to one of my clients about this, and he said, what are you, nuts? Of course, you have to go. Wow. But tell him you want to stay at a 5-star hotel and that you want to bring your own assistant translator. Well, I said quite hesitatingly to Mr. Huang, I want to go, I want to stay at a 5-star hotel, and I want to bring my own assistant translator. Did I mention that Mr. Huang did not speak one word of English, and his wife had to do all of the translating? Mr. Huang quickly responded to his wife's Chinese translation. Then she responded saying, done, it's done. Can you come in July? Oh my God, July. So that was my introduction to this badass adventure. Before I knew it, my visa was set, my passport was renewed, and I found an assistant. By the time July rolled around, I was really excited. True to his word, Mr. Huang had booked us into the 5-star Shangri-La Hotel. It was like a dream. Well, for the next 2 years, I traveled to China every 3 months, giving Talk Power workshops in Beijing and the city of Guangzhou. I just loved every minute of it. So you see, what started out as the scariest never will happen out of the question scenario turned out to be one of the most gratifying experiences of my life. A very important part of this, which I will always remember, is the respect and admiration the Chinese people give to their elders and gave to me. In China, older people are revered, and due to their advanced age, they take on an aura of specialness. in contrast to the indifference often shown to the senior citizens in America.
I don't know if anyone ever feels old. I remember my dad telling this story of walking down a street and seeing his reflection in a store window and being shocked. The skinny old guy he saw there had nothing to do with how he felt. Inside, he felt no different than he did when he was a kid playing stickball in the streets of Brooklyn. And that about sums it up for me. I know I'm not young because men no longer glance at me or approach me. I know I'm not young because I visit doctors more often and I can't wear high heels for more than a few blocks. And I'm more careful crossing streets, but that has nothing to do with the way that I feel inside, which is as young as ever. The loss of male glances was gradual, and traffic in the streets of New York actually is increasingly perilous, so I might just have been as cautious back in the day. And while I proudly announce to others that I am old and I resent when they call me young lady, the truth is I have never, at least not yet, have had an aha moment informing myself that I am anything but youthful. So let's close by thinking about this.
Is lying about age serving the greater good and advancing the cause of respect for the elder woman? Or doesn't self-preservation demand the invention of a younger you in a society where women need all the armaments they can get? And is there any harm in this?
I hope that today's show has helped make us aware that by not embracing our years, we contribute to society's ageism. More importantly, in so doing, we relinquish our power. If enough of us keep embracing our age, it could lead to the start of the next Me Too movement. Every journey, remember, begins with a few such steps. So, we're going to leave you with this to mull over, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to end with a bit of fashion gossip. Who over 50 still wears strapless dresses and plunging necklines? Helen Mirren, Glenn Close, and almost all of the Latinas that I met in Miami. And though what not to wear for ages 40 and up is on TV, I, for one, am never going to wear nondescript beige. And like 97-year-old Iris Apfel, and that's me in the picture with her, after she had just signed a new modeling contract, or 94-year-old Cicely Tyson gracing Time magazine, we are staying badass.
How about you?
See you next time.